I was in there. We were rolling. I got to, do a whole montage where we're just building and creating and painting the walls. And so, a lot of that stuff was happening in real time. Obviously, I'm not, the production or set designer, but, they were filming us doing a lot of those pieces, and then they would come in and obviously make it incredible in what it is. But yeah, we got our hands dirty in there. So I loved being in Lily Blooms. And I love being in this Lily Blooms too. I was sad they didn't invite me to help set this up because it's so pretty. I would have loved to have done this with them.
Hi, besties. In the world of Fast and Furious, my channel doesn't always break news. And sometimes by the time I upload a video, new stuff happens. And that's what happens in the world of Blake Lively's case. I just uploaded a video and we talked about this sworn affidavit that Brian Friedman brought to the court and said under the penalty of perjury that he had a source connected to Taylor Swift come forward about information about Blake Lively allegedly extorting her. So Blake had filed a motion to strike, and Brian was responding with a motion to strike response and sharing why it shouldn't be struck, and then attached an affidavit providing further information. And the judge came back and he ruled in Lively's favor. And while this feels like a defeat for Baldoni's side, there's something about what he ruled that I think we need to talk about even though it's not a part of this court in New York, the issue needs to be raised not there in New York because Mr. Lehman doesn't have any jurisdiction. Instead, he needs to go to the DC court and raise the issue there. Now, I'll tell you what the judge said in the ruling, and then I'll kind of talk to you about what's next. So Lehman said that she moved to have the motion struck, and the motion is made pursuant to the court's inherent power to prevent abusive or improper uses of its docket, and the motion is granted. He explains why they have inherent power in order to do this, and it includes striking materials outside the pleadings that are abusive or otherwise improper. And the Second Circuit has emphasized that courts should protect their judicial process from being co-opted to promote scandal arising out of unproven, potentially libelous statements. It has been stated that a district court has not only the power, but also the responsibility to exercise supervisory power over its own records and files to ensure they are not used to gratify private spite or promote public scandal or serve as reservoirs of libelous statements for press consumption. He claims that the letter was improper and it must be stricken. He says it's irrelevant to any issue before his court. It concerns a subpoena proceeding in the District of Columbia, over which the court has no authority. The sole purpose of the letter is to promote public scandal by advancing inflammatory accusations on information and belief against Lively and her counsel. It transparently invites a press uproar by suggesting that Lively and her counsel attempted to extort a well-known celebrity. Retaining the letter on the docket would be of no use to the court, would allow the court's docket to serve as a reservoir for libelous statements for press consumption. The same is true for the Wayfair party's subsequent submission, docket number 219, which they will strike for the same reason. The Second Circuit Court has noted that court filings may be abused to make potentially defamatory statements without the threat of liability, given that under New York law, absolute immunity from liability for defamation exists for oral or written statements made in connection with a proceeding before the court. It is advised the press accordingly that although the act of filing a document with court might be thought to lend the document additional credibility, in fact, the allegations appearing in such documents might be less credible than those published elsewhere. The motion to strike is granted. And he says that counsel is advised the future misuse of the court's docket may be met with sanctions. So he's not going to sanction him right now. It's a warning. So in this case, he's telling Friedman, like, listen, you only filed that because you're promoting public scandal. And you're doing this with this implication that you know it's going to get a lot of press attention if you say that Lively extorted a well-known celebrity and that you are doing this under information and belief. But at the heart of it, what he's really saying is, I just don't want this on my docket because it has nothing to do with my court, nothing to do at all with my court. So it's struck from this court, which means the affidavit that he filed under the penalty of perjury, which he's trying to claim under here that New York law gives absolute immunity for liability for defamation, and it exists for oral or written statements made in connection with a proceeding before court. It's not absolute immunity for under oath, though. Okay. Either way, he removes it from the docket. He says it's done because it's a way for Friedman to get to the press that Lively might have done this to Taylor Swift. And so, therefore, right, he's trying to get publicity for Baldoni. So, here's my thoughts about all of this. He still subpoenaed the attorneys connected to Taylor Swift, okay? And his reason for subpoenaing them hasn't changed just because it's struck from the court here. His affidavit of what he heard or learned doesn't change. It's just struck from the court here. And what he's alleging is that someone connected to Taylor's side came forward and gave them information about what she had been dealing with behind the scenes with Blake Lively and alleged threats that she was making. Now, what I said in my first video on this very topic was it sounded like what was being said was very similar to what occurred with Baldoni with Blake. Like, you need to do this or else. Blake was getting really bad press during the period of time after the Super Bowl because Taylor didn't invite her to the Super Bowl. In this case, they're saying she threatens, I'll expose you if you don't agree. Judge in this case over here says, this isn't relevant to my court. It has nothing to do with it. And he notes that it has to do with a subpoena in Washington, D.C. So what can Friedman do in Washington, D.C.? So in the motion to quash, he can respond to the motion to quash in court, and he can try to work either by objecting it, their motion to quash, and here's why, and he could reiterate what he just told the court here, and he could tell it in the DC court, and that be, this is what we're seeking. I think the reason he did it here is that the subpoena is likely going to become moot if he's working with Taylor. So say Taylor is participating and cooperating and they're trying to work out exchanging communication. If they're in good faith working together, that he might not even be able to get a chance to respond in the DC courts because it might already be settled and taken care of if they decide to withdraw their motion to quash. So my thought is maybe knowing that he wasn't going to intervene in the DC one because it was going to be removed from the docket, he needed to get a statement out because Blake's team was accusing them of improper conduct. But by doing that, he engaged in improper conduct by filing something that wasn't relevant to the jurisdiction in the court. I think Judge Lehman is trying to play both sides and make both sides happy. I also think that Blake's team right now has been putting out a lot against them, Baldoni and Wayfair, to make them feel like they're on the defense a lot. And because there's been constant motions of, they're not complying with discovery, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, they're not giving us documents, they're trying to subpoena third parties with Edgeworth, they're trying to subpoena these people that are Taylor Swift's attorneys. They're abusing the court system. I mean, they're being accused over and over and over again of being abusive in the court. And Baldoni's side has been playing things close to the vest and has been trying to show the court what's been going on. But every time they try to show the court, Blake's team has like 13 new allegations against them. And so when you're dealing with someone like Blake and Ryan who are moving faster than you can, and it's like a game of whack-a-mole with them, you're going to have slip-ups like this because, quite honestly, they are leveling so many attacks on them that they can't even properly respond to them. And by filing the motion to strike, he had to respond to it because he's allowed to by the court. So it's just like they're baiting him. They're telling a court something false about him, and then he feels like he needs to defend himself but he knows he's not going to intervene, likely in DC, because Taylor's team is accordingly working with him, I guess. And the subpoena issue might get resolved, but he wants the information known to the public and to the judge like, listen, I'm not abusing the court system. It's like when you're dealing with people like this in court, it can be very frustrating because they're doing everything in a way where they're trying to appear like they're above board, Blake's side, and like they're the victims. But they're the ones that are like instigating so much of this, trying to claim like they're being victimized, which then puts Wayfair on their heels. Litigation is a marathon, not a sprint. And Blake's side has known for at least a couple weeks that Brian Friedman was targeting Taylor's attorneys. They've known this, right? And they've known that they're looking for something related to attorneys' communication with Taylor's attorneys. They told them as much in the document that was filed in the DC court and said, from the best we can tell from the subpoena, you're looking for information of conversations between one of our attorneys and one of their attorneys because he's looking for information connected to Gottlieb and Baldrige. Okay. So they've known this at least since April 28th. And in that time, since April 28th, they've been ramping up these negative filings against Wayfair. Okay. So that could be strategic because they know what could be coming out, right? So they find out about the subpoena on the 28th, and the first motion to compel is filed by Leslie Sloan on the 30th. So Leslie files a motion to compel on the 30th, and then subsequent bing, 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 bing start coming. And you get one from Kristen Toller trying to intervene and quash a subpoena related to Edgeworth in the New York courts. And we don't want to have to give up our information from Edgeworth, and it's all protected and it's all confidential. And then you get two motions to compel on the 9th from Blake's team. And the 9th is a day after Taylor Swift is subpoenaed. So in the span of that 10-day period, Leslie Sloan files a motion to compel. Two motions to compel are filed against them by Blake's side. And then you also get Kristen accusing them of trying to get backdoor information on a subpoena to Edgeworth for Stephanie Jones. All four of them are painting them in a bad light. And all of that is getting reported in the press. And it's probably very frustrating for Baldoni and frustrating for Wayfair because they don't believe they're doing what they say they're doing. And in fact, when it came to one of the motions to compel, he didn't issue sanctions on either side. So no attorney's fees were granted, meaning if you are really in violation of a motion to compel and you're really digging your heels for no reason, they can award attorney's fees to the other side that is asking to compel the court. And he refused to do that. So one of those cases didn't really go the way Blake wanted, and it was a split decision. And that decision really was overshadowed because this then dropped, right? Now, some will argue that Blake brought it to this district, which she didn't need to. And some will say, well, why doesn't he strike Blake's letter? Because Blake's letter wasn't asked to be struck. He didn't go on record and say, listen, I want you to strike her letter then because it's irrelevant. Blake's team is overwhelming them with negative filings, making them feel like they need to defend themselves, which can then result in what just happened today, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Does it mean that this goes away? Absolutely not. So here's the truth. If what he says is true, and this is all why he subpoenaed Taylor's attorneys, and if there really is a source that he says exists that is close to Taylor and came forward about what happened to Taylor, that doesn't change anything. That information doesn't go away. That information about Taylor possibly cooperating with Baldoni doesn't change either. And the facts are very simple. Taylor didn't respond to any of this. Her attorneys are trying to subpoena to them, but Taylor has not yet to file a motion to quash for her subpoena. Okay. Taylor is in a situation right now where she has information that she can share, and it would be very hard for her to say that she doesn't have any information because there were key moments that she was involved where she was present, right? She was at the penthouse when Baldoni was there. He's not lying about that. And she doesn't dispute that she was there. And that's a key moment in their case where she can provide evidence. And if Blake was using her as a weapon, they're allowed to question Taylor to say, were you involved in what Blake says you were involved in here? Right. So for Taylor to get out of it would be a lot harder than for her attorneys. And Taylor might not want to go public with what Blake has done to her. I mean, you're then having to go after someone who you thought was your best friend for 10 years. And that's devastating. Now, some people don't think Taylor is innocent in it. Maybe she's not. But I'm going to just go back to what I've said the whole time. Taylor has said nothing to defend Blake. Taylor has completely distanced herself from Blake over and over and over in the media, that every single time Blake has attempted to realign herself to Taylor through her PR team, Taylor's PR team fights back almost immediately and says their relationship is strained. They're not friends. They'll never be friends again. It's over. Let me give you an example. Knowing that there's a possibility that this would get struck from the record, someone spoke to Radar Online. A source talked to someone about Swift. Okay. The headline is, she's facing her worst nightmare yet as her private A-list text could be revealed by an ex-pal Blake Lively's court fight. So this was published a couple hours ago. There's been no pickup on it yet because everyone's talking about what's happening in court. And everyone is talking about this like body that washed up 2 football fields away from her home in Rhode Island. And her name is only being used in that because it's in close proximity to her house, but has nothing to do with her. And she's not in Rhode Island today. She's in New York. But this is what Radar says. Sources tell us as part of the subpoena, she may be required to provide private communications between herself and Lively, which could be used as evidence and made public in court proceedings. Swift has maintained a friendship with her since 2015, and she's refused to speak to her for months after she found herself entangled in the dispute after Baldoni alleged the singer was present during a pivotal script meeting in which she claimed was pressured into accepting her writing. The source said the text coming out is Taylor's worst nightmare. She's public when it comes to her gigs and interacting with fans, but beyond that is fiercely protective of her privacy. She is also extremely careful about what she shares among her inner circle, so the thought of her private messages being released is horrifying for her. She's in utter panic about how this is going to affect her. Really, she's in a state of disbelief and overcome with anxiety that this could potentially destroy her career and A-list friendships. Our insider said the ongoing legal chaos has placed immense strain on Taylor and Swift's relationship. She said Taylor had to step back and make a conscious decision to keep contact with her at an absolute minimum. It's quite likely their friendship will be non existent once this is all over. And then they go on to say that Taylor tried to be there for Blake, but her patience has worn thin. She now is feeling deeply hurt and upset, believing she's been dragged into something she never signed up for. And Travis apparently is feeling the heat too. And he even stopped following Ryan on Instagram last week, and the pressure clearly putting a strain on things between him and Taylor. The anxiety over what might surface is creating serious cracks in their relationship. It might even break them apart. So the fear is that she has there's information out there that she doesn't want out there in these text messages. And there's a threat that it's going to get released somehow, whether it's through the subpoena, through the case, or Blake releasing them herself. And regardless, that is that is a byproduct of litigation, that these messages can become public. But to be fair, text messages between Taylor and Blake about non-related topics wouldn't be relevant in this case. So if she's talking to Blake about some other A-lister and it has nothing to do with It Ends With Us or Baldoni, it wouldn't be admissible for this case. So that fear about it being released through the case might be that the fear is that Blake's going to put it all out there. But if she's distancing herself so much that she's not speaking to Blake and she's only speaking to Blake through an attorney, that tells me all I need to know. And despite this ruling by the judge, Taylor has still said nothing to publicly decry that everything that happened here is false. And TMZ says that Baldoni's side, a source close to the Baldoni camp, tells us the judge is merely saying he doesn't want letters that he believes he doesn't need, which don't ask him to do anything. However, we're told Baldoni's lawyers can continue to seek discovery and other information on those topics. They can, because that's what they're doing with the subpoena to her attorneys. And then, of course, Blake's spokesperson, Leslie, says it took the court less than 24 hours to see through Mr. Friedman's irrelevant, improper, and inflammatory accusations, strike them, remove them from the court, and warn Mr. Friedman that further misconduct may be met with sanctions. So, really, what Baldoni's team needs to do is just try to stay out of the fray. And even if it looks like Blake is winning by doing all these motions, to just fight back as best they can and try not to, you know, resort to tactics that Blake's team is doing to them. And it's hard when that happens. But again, like they said, it doesn't make this go away. If they have this information from someone close to Taylor, that doesn't change anything. So a lot of people are upset with the judge for making this ruling and they think the judge is biased. And you guys, federal judges have relationships with almost every single attorney, and if their every single relationship that they had with every single person was actually like reviewed under a microscope, there would be no judges that we have, period. And I'm not in a position to look at one ruling and say this is proof that he's biased. Litigation like this, you are going to have rulings that are pro Justin and pro Blake, and it just depends on who has the better argument that day. But thus far, no one has won anything. Okay. The case is still in discovery. They haven't gone to trial. One ruling against Baldoni doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means they have to take other avenues to explore this topic. Don't lose hope, really and truly. I think it's clear that something between Taylor and Blake has happened. Taylor is not releasing any statements to support Blake. She's not refuting that anyone has spoken to his team, and she's not said a word to come to Blake's defense since everything kicked off. And she has not been publicly seen with Blake since October of 2024. That should tell you all you need to know. Sometimes he had to get that out to the public to maybe make a statement so it was out there. But even though it's struck, that information is out there. It's not a part of the court, but the information is out there. So we know what they're looking for. We know what they're considering. We know that Taylor could be cooperating. They can't strike that from our memory. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.